Hey everyone, how's it going? Thanks so much for tuning in. In today's video, we're going to take a thorough test drive of the '89 V8 swapped S10. I'll also give you guys plenty of sound clips, both driving and sitting still, so you can get a good idea of how this whole setup is, because unlike the 240SX, I've never actually done a first test drive of this, and it's got about 350 miles on it or so, and I just recently put Holley Sniper fuel injection on it, and everything's going pretty good. There was a little bit of issues, which I'll talk about in just a moment. I'll also talk about some important updates as far as the personal side. I know I haven't been uploading a lot of videos lately. It's just been absolutely chaotic, so I've been trying to take a little bit of personal time here and there, but hopefully, you know, in the next couple months, things start to get back into a good rhythm with making content and whatnot, but I'll talk about all that stuff in just a bit. But let's go ahead and fire the truck up. We'll get a cold start out back, get it out of the shop, and head down the road. About doing the initial setup of the Sniper EFI system in the last video, so if you haven't had a chance to check it out, I'll put a link in the description below. But right now I'm going to go ahead and go to monitors, multi-gauge, air-fuel ratio, so when I'm driving I can keep an eye on some of the vital parameters. Once the truck reaches an operating temperature of 160 degrees, the self-learning feature of the Sniper EFI activates, so it sees how you're driving and all that kind of stuff and adjusts fueling and all that, and it's just amazing stuff. So I've talked about this some before as to why I switched from the carburetor to Sniper EFI, but just in case you hadn't seen that, I'll just cover the bases real quick. I actually already had the Sniper stuff reserved for another project that I ended up giving up on, and instead of returning it or letting it all sit on the shelf for a future project, my curiosity kind of got the best of me, because I've heard a lot of really good things about Sniper EFI, and I was just curious as to how it all worked and how it all went together, and figured it would make some fun content on YouTube. So that's where it ended up coming from. But the carburetor that I had on before was really quite awesome. It was a Edelbrock ABS2 650 CFM, and the ABS2s atomize the fuel a lot better than a traditional carburetor. So as far as throttle response is concerned, it was fantastic. Like, I really don't notice a big difference in throttle response between the ABS2 and Sniper EFI, which is, you know, awesome for the carburetor. The biggest difference that I have noticed is like reliability of like starting back up after it's been driven for a while and gets hot. The biggest problem with a lot of newer fuels nowadays is the ethanol content. So, you know, you have up to 10% ethanol in regular pump gas nowadays, and the ethanol actually lowers the boiling point of the fuel. So with the carbureted setup like this, you know, it depends on the setup. It really does. If the engine bay gets hot enough, it can actually start vaporizing the fuel in the lines, and you get what's known as vapor lock. So after you drive the truck, turn it off, come back 10 minutes later, it might be a little hard to start. You have to mash the pedal all the way to the floor, get that air in, get the fuel in, and it'll kick it off most of the time. And I'm used to that. I've driven older vehicles for years now, so that really wasn't a big deal to me, but it can be a problem. It never got super bad, but I ended up finding a local station that actually sold 93 octane non-ethanol fuel, so that pretty much solved my my vapor lock issue. But now with EFI, there's no issue at all. I can go get the regular 93 10% ethanol fuel and never have an issue with vapor lock, so that's nice. This is really fun. It really is. Ever since I started getting into S10s, like with the Jimmy project and stuff, I always thought it would be cool to build a V8 S10, and I learned a whole lot with the Jimmy series, and I've learned a lot with diving back into the 240SX. All of that has given me just an insane boost of confidence. I have done a really good job on this truck. Really good job. I'm so proud of it. Like, it's so much fun. Everything seems to be working as it should. Temperature stays in check. Oil pressure's good. I mean, just... Woo! Boy! Oh my gosh. So much fun. But anyway, this truck actually drives fantastic. Like, it's lowered pretty good. I think if it was any lower, it would really start rubbing and bottoming out in the back, so it's like the perfect amount of low. It handles fantastic. I've got all Beltec suspension components on this with the Street Performance shock absorbers, and it's firm, but it actually soaks up the bumps really well. Like, it rides a lot better than you would think. And I've got disc brakes on the back from Little Shop Manufacturing, Willwood 6-piston brakes in front. Stops really good. I mean, no complaints at all. It's just awesome. I just can't get over that. Like, good gracious, this is fun. Now, I know a lot of you have been really looking forward to some sound clips of this truck, because after my buddy John and I got the exhaust fitted, I had some sound clips at the end of that video, but I didn't really do as much as I wanted to. I wanted to save it for video, and that's part of the reason why I'm filming this. So let's go ahead and dive into that. But first, I'll cover what my setup is, in case any of you watching this video haven't seen that. So I have Sanderson headers, V8 S10 swap exhaust from Jegs, and a Dynamax X-pipe muffler from O'Reilly. We had to modify where the exhaust attaches to the header collectors, just because the Jegs exhaust, I think, is made to go up to Hedman headers, which has a different flange design. And I decided not to use the muffler that came from Jegs, because I saw a lot of really good reviews on this Dynamax muffler at O'Reilly, and it's got a built-in X-pipe, and it just sounds so mean. I'm really happy with it. Like, the truck is loud, don't get me wrong, but it's not as annoying as you would think, especially on the highway. Like, it doesn't drone really bad, which is it's very nice. I'll tell you what, it is way different out back than it is in here. Like, it's loud, it sounds great and stuff, but back there when it's idling, holy crap, it just sounds so angry. Very happy with this setup. So let me go ahead and pull over real quick, and we'll get a bunch of revs. air control valve on the Sniper throttle body. I obviously don't have the hood on the car right now, so it'll quieten. It'll get more quiet when the hood's on, but that's just part of how it all operates. I ended up putting a completely different rear end into this truck. It has a GM 8.5-inch rear end from a ZR2 Blazer. The axle tubes have been cut shorter because the ZR2s are 4-wheel drive, and that rear end is actually even wider than a normal Blazer 4-wheel drive. Doesn't matter. It's been narrowed down to 2-wheel drive S10 width, and it's got a limited slip differential and all that stuff, beefed up axles and whatnot, so it can definitely handle a lot more power than this truck is making, but it also allows for you know, some extra funds. It hooks great. Like, lets you do a little bit of slidey, but those wheels lock together and just go. Gets your heart racing, I'm telling you what. You know, the truck actually has pretty decent grip. I mean, the tires can only do so much. I've got two 25/60 tires, but they're good tires. They're BF Goodrich radial TAs. I wanted that classic white letter look, and I wanted a decent profile. I don't like really skinny tires. I wanted to kind of do something that was more or less looking period correct. So it worked really, really well with the Monte Carlo SS wheels that I put on it. And they got a nice poke to them, like a nice fat tire. But they got pretty decent grip overall. Obviously, you've got a lot more weight up front than you do in the rear, so just keeping that in mind. But I haven't noticed any issues at all. Again, very happy with this. So anyway, what else am I forgetting to mention? So 700 R4, beefed up transmission from TCI. I had to get the front and rear drive shaft shortened to fit the setup that I have, and there's other things too. You just have to go watch the other videos of the series and catch up, because I can't remember everything. But at this point, the powertrain, chassis, suspension, whatever, it's done. I mean, there's always little stuff that you can tinker on. There's little things I want to adjust here and there, but for all intents and purposes, it's done. So I can start moving more towards the cosmetics. I don't know when I'm going to start body work and paint. Yes, I do plan on painting the truck. There's a lot of other things I have to get done first. That's what happens when you've got too many projects, not just automotive projects, but other projects as well. But I've got a lot of interior content coming too, with, you know, restoring the interior, installing a sound system, yada yada yada. So if you haven't followed me on social media yet, be sure to. It's SaabKyle04 LLC, and I'll keep you guys posted on upcoming content. But what is next for the S10 in the immediate? Well, it's starting to get colder outside, so AC really isn't that big of a priority, but I do want to go ahead and hook up AC. I ended up using the accessory drive brackets off of the 4.3 V6 that was in this truck, so as far as the positioning of everything, I was able to retain the stock air conditioning system. So that's going to be nice. I've never serviced an AC system before, so looking forward to learning that. I've got to install the back bumper, obviously put the hood back on, and yeah, maybe dive into some interior stuff, who knows. In reflecting on this S10 series as a whole, it has been incredibly rewarding. I have learned so much. When I first bought this truck, doing a V8 swap wasn't my original intention. Yes, I always wanted to do an S10 V8, but you know, I was thinking of doing more or less a stock restoration, just like the 240, and we all know how that turned out. But anyway, I'm glad it happened the way it did. I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason, and I mean, you gotta follow opportunities as they present themselves. So this engine came available, local, and I was like, $350 with a cam, good price, why not? And then down the rabbit hole I went. It's not hard to swap a V8 into an S10, but depending on how you build it and how your setup is, it can get kind of tricky with figuring out how to route things, place things, and I guess that's pretty much with any build, but for someone like me that's learning as they go, it can be a lot. It can be very stressful, and then you throw filming on YouTube in the mix, and then trying to fight the algorithm, and always wanting, you know, your videos to get sent out more and get more views and whatnot, and it's just too much. Sometimes it becomes too much, and that's why, you know, between us moving into the new house, I'm actually in the midst of building a new shop next to my existing shop, so I can more easily make a variety of content for you guys. I'll talk about that more in just a bit too. Where was I going? Anyway, that's why I've been trying to take some personal time lately. It's just gotten way too overwhelming, and YouTube has gotten way more stressful than it should be. I'm trying to kind of fix that, but you can only do so much. But anyway, so some of the issues that I had with initially setting up the Sniper EFI, I drove the truck for about 30 miles or so. It was fantastic. As you guys saw in the last video, it fired up, got everything timed properly and everything, and you know, that was pretty much it. So 30 miles or so later, I was driving it through town, and the truck just fell flat on its face. Like the air-fuel ratio or the gauge was going crazy. I barely limped it back home. It stalled out just as I got it to home, and once I got it in the shop, I never got it fired up since. Long story short of troubleshooting, ended up being a fuel problem. I was like, well, that's just fantastic, because of what I talked about in the last video. It's not easy to get to the fuel pump in these trucks. The easiest way to go about doing it, in my opinion, you know, it makes it easier if you have a lift, but if you got some help, the easiest way to go about doing it that I found is to take the bed off. So I was like, well, that's just great. I gotta take the bed off like for the bajillionth time, because I'm gonna have to take it off again when it comes to body work. But anyway, the fuel pump was fine. It turned out the rubber line that connected the fuel pump to the metal hard line that came out of the sending unit had busted. I have no idea. Maybe I mixed up the wrong type of fuel hose. It doesn't matter. I ended up actually doing an inline fuel pump setup, you know, from Holley, just alongside the fuel rail. So if I ever have any problems, it's right on the fuel rail, and I never have to worry about the in-tank setup again. I ended up putting my carburetor S10 sending unit back in place and redoing all the wiring. So once all that was done, I went through the initial wizard of the Sniper again just to make sure. Fired up perfect, and it's been just wonderful ever since. So yay. Big thanks to my buddy Joseph for bringing over his fuel pressure gauge, where we found out the pump was putting out 10 psi. So yeah, you live and learn, right? But I will say too, there were some people that brought up a good point on the last video where I did the heat shrink that had the glue. I did notice the fuel was starting to deteriorate that glue. Whether it would have messed up the connection, you know, the electrical connection to the fuel pump, I'm not 100% sure, but there might be another type or a better, more fuel compatible heat shrink out there. So just something to be aware of, and I do appreciate those of you who point out things like that, because again, I'm learning. I'm not perfect. I am not a mechanic, so I really appreciate any and all help that I can get. So thanks a bunch. Oh yeah, I almost forgot to mention, I've talked about the suspension, but I also completely redid the steering. As you guys saw in that episode, I also put in a Borgeson quick ratio steering box, so it doesn't feel like a wallowy old S10. It's got a nice tight feel to it with just enough give. This truck didn't have any sway bars on it either from the factory, so I've got sway bars on the front and rear, Beltec stuff, so that firmed everything up a good bit. It's just nice. These Chrysler Crossfire seats have actually worked out pretty good. It's a little tight up against the door panels, but it hasn't really bothered me. The Typhoon steering wheel feels really nice. It's like got a touch of luxury with the leather and stuff. You know, everything works. It's just great. I love it so much. I wish I had the camera in my hand. The truck just hit 400 miles. Very, very exciting. On that note, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to leave a like below because it really helps the video a lot. And if you haven't subscribed already, consider doing so because there's always a lot more content where that came from. Double check too, even if you're already subscribed, that your notification bell is selected so you can get properly notified of all of the new uploads. I have been fighting the algorithm lately. It just keeps changing all the time. I can't predict it, so make sure that notification bell is selected. Before I close the video out, let me give you guys a quick sneak peek at the new, or where the new shop is gonna be, and you know, give you a little idea on what's to come. All right, so here's my existing shop, and here is where the new shop's gonna be. Just off to the right. I've already got the pad poured for it. It's gonna be 30 feet deep and 70 feet across. The next step is to get everything graded up in front of here for the parking pad, so to speak. There's gonna be a lean-to coming off of the front of the shop on that far side, and 3 10x10 doors on this side. Ever since I started migrating towards doing more project content, my end goal has been to get to the point where I can work on a few projects simultaneously, but with me wanting to do more restoration type work versus repairs and fixing videos, I need a lot more space to be able to work on a few vehicles. So I'm kind of thinking the old shop is going to be for more dirty type things like frame cleaning and painting, body work, all of that kind of stuff. And then the new shop will be for more finishing type work. This I want to insulate and actually put heat and air in it and, you know, be a lot more comfortable than the other shop. I've got drains already in the pad, so that's also really nice, again, to help keep everything nice and clean. I'm very, very excited about this. It's just gonna open up so many more opportunities to be able to just make more content on the channel. If I get held up on one project, theoretically, I should be able to switch over to another one because, again, everything will have its own dedicated space, so leave something over there, come over here, work on another one. You get my point. Of course, I'll keep you all up to date on shop progress. Expect some video content to come out of the whole, you know, process. Definitely a video of putting it up and maybe some other stuff. I'm not sure yet, but I'll let you know. I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.